Cabo, we are
Happy
back.
New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year. We're back from the holidays. How was your break? How was the break?
It was good. Yeah, it was good. Did a lot of sitting around, fires in the fireplace, just kind of chilling, reading
Nice.
some books. I say some books, that's not true. Reading a book that I still haven't finished yet.
What are you reading?
I'm reading a book called it's a fiction book called Razorblade Tears. It's pretty good.
Ooh,
yeah.
Okay, that sounds good.
I like a good fiction book. How was your break?
Yeah, it was good. I got some downtime. Which was good. Just time to do different stuff. Rather than reading, I spent my free time tuning into the new season of Dexter. Were you ever a Dexter fan?
There's a new season?
It's a prequel. So good.
No kidding. Do you want to just talk about that?
Yeah, you want to just do that the whole time?
Yeah, I am a huge Dexter fan. I did not know that was happening, and that makes me excited for my evening tonight.
There you go. And they're releasing an episode once a week or whatever. So I think there's only 4 of the new season. I'm not sure exactly how many there are, but it's since I now have to wait like a week for the new episode, I've gone back and I'm starting from scratch. I'm in episode 1 or season 1 of the original one.
Okay. I love it.
So
yeah.
Anyways, yeah, all good though, but we're not here to talk about Dexter. Not completely anyways. We're here to talk about coaching in 2025. And what are some things that we as coaches can do to knock it out of the park and crush it in 2025 and run some kick-ass classes. So, Angelo's on here. He's liking the new season as well. It's so good.
Yeah, we've got a vote to keep talking about Dexter. It looks like.
Should we just run Dexter the entire time? It's so good. Yeah, and there's going to be there's all kinds of stuff, Cable. You need to get involved in that so you can know what's going on.
All right.
But yeah, anyways, we want to talk about
let's
talk coaching. And what are we going to do in 2025? And so we each put together a list on what coaches need to do to run kick-ass classes in 2025. And so this is it right here. What have you taken away from the Dexter that I can apply to my coaching in 2025? I think fit in, right? You got to fit in. That's something.
Be nice to every member.
Yeah, he's always a little awkward in that place. He has to do these things to fit in. And so sometimes there's days where you walk in and you've got those members that maybe aren't your favorite members, but you walk in with the donuts like he always does and hands them out and is the guy that everybody likes, or at least does the things that people might like. So
there we go.
That's
a reach.
This one? To eliminate people from your gym that doesn't fit into the community. That's right.
There we go. Yeah. That's good. I don't think I have anything on my list that could fit into the Dexter category. I think they're all pretty straightforward. But yeah, we both got together or we didn't get together. We both separately came up with kind of our top little countdown, top things that we want to see coaches continue to do or start doing, maybe if you're not already. And think, how are we going to do this? We're just going to each share one, kind of go back and forth and see how our lists match up with each other. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to go from the bottom up. And here's
so least important.
Well, I don't know that I'm going to say least important. I'm just going to say
basic.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just going to start. I'm going to say bottom up. I don't know if it's least important because all of these are really important.
I think they're all important.
Especially this first one. And it should be obvious and it should be a layup, but I'll tell you right now that this is one that is not done as consistently as it should be. And that is to start and finish your classes on time. If class starts at 5:30, you should be at the whiteboard getting ready for your brief at 5:30. It shouldn't be 5:32. It shouldn't be 5:36. It also shouldn't be 5:28. Start and finish your class on the right time. It's something that seems so obvious, but is done incorrectly. Now, there might be a couple exceptions to where maybe you've got a little wiggle room there, but that should be the exception and not the rule. And Omar's with me on that thing. It's like, come on, Start and finish on time.
So kind of basic things that people take for granted that we should be doing every single time. What I like about this already so far is that I don't have that on my list specifically, but what I do have is create a lesson plan before every single class. And I'm going to go ahead and group those together, because if you have that lesson plan, now granted, you're still going to need to start your class on time, right? But if you have that lesson plan and you know exactly how you're going to use every single minute, then that should, in theory, allow you to finish on time. That's going to be a huge assistance in, hey, I've got this drop dead start time of when I need to start this workout. It's a 15-minute workout. I've got to start it at this time so that I can allot some time at the end for putting things away, for the cool down and all of that stuff. And so that is then going to allow me to be sure that I finish my class on time. In fact, the classes that I struggle to finish on time the most are always the ones that I just get lazy and sloppy and I don't create a plan and I just go in there and wing it. And before you know it, I'm looking at my watch like,
what?
Abel,
you don't create a plan?
Not anymore. I do every single time. No, but those days where you're like in a rush, or maybe you pick up a class last second, or a lot of different reasons, right? And I think there's value every once in a while, for me anyways, for that to happen, because it's like you get comfortable in your experience sometimes. And I think it just goes to show that, like, hey, even though I've been doing this for quite a while, I don't need to spend an hour on a lesson plan. Like, I can get one. I know you and Pete, I think, talked a little bit about that napkin
timeline. That's what I was going to say. Like
that's the thing right there. I can get one planned out with just like, major timestamps and kind of figure out my teaching plan in, less than 15 minutes for sure. But every once in a while, if you go in there and just wing it, then it just, I think, gives you that little jolt and a little reminder of like, nope, this is not the way to do it. Doesn't matter how much experience you have. Doesn't matter how many classes that you've coached or that you currently coach. You need to have some sort of a plan before you step on the floor if you want to give your athletes the best class and if you want to be able to finish on time, right?
There it is. Dexter never winged it. That's right. It's like number one.
Always have a plan.
Number one rule: don't get caught. That should be our number one rule. Don't go over timeline.
Yeah,
like that's it. You've got to do your prep work. You've got it. Don't be sloppy. Don't be lazy. You being lazy or being sloppy is going to get you caught, or in our case, gonna cause you to go over the timeline. So yeah, I like that one. I think those two are together. Start and finish on time, and to ensure that happens, you've got to have a plan. Ideally a lesson plan that you're making happen there. All right.
I'm going to do my first one, if you will, right? Like kind of going from the bottom up. I have keep your athletes moving together. So keep your athletes on your command, moving together as much as you can. It's not going to be for the entire class. Obviously, there's going to be, of course, there's going to be times where you have to tell them, all right, do 5 reps or what have you. But for the most part, as much as possible, keep your athletes on your cadence, reset, stand, go, reset, stand, right? You following?
I am. And when you originally mentioned that, I took it a different way. But so you're discussing that and mentioning it as it relates to like the specific warm up, right? And what that means is we as coaches should be calling our reps, at least the first handful of reps. And like you said, at the end, after I've, called 10 reps of the clean, maybe I go, all right, do 3 more on your own for you to find like consecutive reps or get smooth there. But the rest of it, we need to be calling reps. What's the advantage or disadvantage? Let's do this. What's the disadvantage of not calling reps and just being like, hey guys, here's the clean progression. You're going to deadlift, shrug, you're going to muscle clean, and then you're going to power clean. Do 5 reps of each. If I do it like that as a coach, what's the risk? What's the disadvantage?
Well, for starters, now you've got everybody kind of moving on their own speed and their own cadence, and you're not going to be able to see nearly as much. You're missing positions. You're maybe watching one person and everybody else is doing all their stuff over there. And you're just not going to be able to see as much. You're not setting yourself up for success to see their, again, receiving positions, setup positions, what's happening in the middle of the movement. Yep. Omar says this, no 2-1-2 for sure.
Empty reps. Yep.
Empty reps. And that's very bare bones basics. Is it's going to prevent you from seeing as much as you can. What thing pops out to you? Because there's so many things. There's so many advantages of keeping your athletes moving on your
calling the reps allows you to dictate what's going on. Like inevitably, if I just go, hey guys, do 5 reps, and I've got, maybe it's Johnny asks me a question, and now my attention's faced at him to answer the question, and not by the time I look up, everybody's done. Right. And now I've seen nothing, I've corrected nothing, I've coached really not at all. Or if there's one person that's struggling and you need to watch a couple more reps for them, same deal. By the time I look up, I'm not able to see anything else. And either one of two things are going to happen. More than likely what's going to happen, I'm going to look up and everybody's going to be done. And I'm going to be like, well, I guess it probably went pretty well. Let's move to the next step, or let's add weight to the bar, or whatever it is. If you're trying to coach and you need to see everybody, then what's going to happen next is you're going to be like, actually give me 5 more reps, guys. And then you get caught up again. And then like all of a sudden we've done, 25 reps of just the deadlift of the clean. And I've
you've
not
maybe
been
seen 2 people.
Yeah,
you've
exactly.
maybe given 3 cues.
Yeah.
If that. Yeah. I totally
I've
agree.
wasted a lot of time with that. Now, the first thing that popped to my head when you said keep everybody moving together, that wasn't necessarily like you calling and dictating the reps for the specific warm-up, but it was like in general in class. And I thought
like a group management aspect.
Yeah, the group management, and avoid the stragglers where you've got like, here's the warm-up that 80% of the class is doing, and then you've got Susie over there and Jimmy that are like in the corner doing their own thing, and then you're taking some people through this specific warm-up, and you got other people that are already loading the barbell or doing practice reps or something like that. I think both of those things apply. And I think,
and that's one of the reasons, one of the other benefits of keeping everybody on your count, like doing reps together, is the group management aspect. Everybody knows who the coach is. They know what they're supposed to be doing. They know when they're supposed to be doing it. And it eliminates the possibility that people are going to straggle over and start doing something over here while you're still letting people do this thing over here, because everyone knows, like, I move when she says I move, I rest when she says I rest. And then there's no question whatsoever what people should be doing. So it's so much more than just calling reps and holding them in position so that you can like statically look at the setup position. It trickles out to group management. It trickles out to presence and attitude, because it's going to allow you to use more names, to give more, maybe say, oh, Todd, I like that hip extension on that one. Good job. Like making you feel good about what you just did. Again, keeping you in control of the class. It just trickles to so many things. Yeah. And Omar just said the same thing. Absolutely. Calling names makes it feel more personalized, giving the athlete a positive experience for sure.
And there's a lot of times at like level 2s and even level 1s, there are coaches that'll be like, hey, how do I keep like everybody from kind of going and doing their own thing? Or I've got this group of people that are always chatty and stuff like that. I think to your point, if I'm calling reps and I'm dictating things, I don't give people the time or the ability to go off and start doing their own things. Like if I'm commanding them and they're going on my call, they're not going to have time to stop and start talking to somebody else or wander off into the corner. That only typically happens, from my experience, when I'm working really, really slow, or like there's big breaks in between teaching points, or like I go and work with one person one off and I leave the other 10 people in class to figure out what they're doing. I think it was at a level 1 or a level 2 at one point that question was asked, and I was working with Joe Dogain, and he's like, yeah, you guys have probably experienced it where you turn around to talk to one person and then behind your back, you got people hanging from the rafters. You got people in the corner smoking cigarettes.
Cigarettes. Yeah. Someone's left because they've decided they're just bored and aren't really feeling it. Yeah.
And it's, obviously typically people in the CrossFit gym aren't in the corner smoking cigarettes, but I get the idea, right? Because that's like what happens when you're in high school or middle school and you're trying to be a teacher or a coach or something like that.
Turn your back to the class to write on the board, right?
Exactly. Omar asked the question, could you have them be the demo? Yeah, I'm assuming you're talking about the person that is kind of in the corner doing their own thing. That would be an interesting way to to handle that. Potentially that could work out well. You could put them on the spot and be like, actually, Kristin, since you've seems to have this figured out, you're going to show us 3 reps. I've done that, or I've like put somebody on the spot and asked them a question, and then they realize they don't even know what you're talking about, and that makes them a little bit embarrassed. You just got to know.
You have to know them. I think
you just got to know your audience, because
yeah.
Number one, you don't want to offend that person, even if they are being disruptive. If it's a bad experience for them, that might not go over well. And the other thing that sometimes I think people don't really think about is that if I do this to put Kristin on the spot and we've got a good relationship, but you've got somebody that's brand new, that's in class, and they see that happen, like, and they don't know context of your relationship, or maybe that it's kind of fun, what you're doing is a little bit jokey, and they look at that and they're like, oh my gosh, that happens in this gym. There's a chance that I could be in here and the coach could like call on me to be the demonstrator. That is mortifying. I don't know if I can come back. You know what I mean?
That's
like
a good point. Yeah.
You might set the tone, and just not even somebody that you're actually interacting with at that point might be nervous or scared and might cause them not to want to come back. So something to think about there. Now you already pulled this up, but Omar actually mentioned my next one on the list.
Oh, cool.
Which is using people's names. So he says calling names makes it feel personalized and giving the athletes a positive experience. What's the saying, or what's the belief, or it's probably the truth? What's every human being's favorite word in whatever language that they speak?
Yeah, their own name.
Their own name. And so we as coaches should be using people's names over and over and over again. And I think at a baseline, we typically say somebody's name should be said in class 3 times. But if you think about the structure of class, if you only say somebody's name 3 times, that's probably too little, because, you know, you walk in the door and I'm like, hey, Kristin, how are you? Good to see you. There's 1. I give you 1 cue or correction during class. Hey, Kristin, push your knees out. There's 2. And then class is over. Kristin, what's your score? There's 3.
There it is.
And it's like
1 cue.
1 cue, and that's it. There should be multiple things, right? You're walking in the door. I say, hey, how are you doing? I use your name again when I ask what you did this weekend. Then I use your name again when I'm like, hey, I saw you wince a little bit when you did that squat. Is your knee all right? How's your back feeling? What's going on? You know, I give you multiple cues when I'm going through that specific warm up. Before the workout starts, I check in to give you some scaling options, to see what your plan is, or to give you a plan. Then I get your score at the end of class. Then I ask you when you're coming back to the gym. I mean, that's at least 5, maybe it's closer to 10. It's all kinds of stuff there. So
yeah, that's such an important one. And, you know, I don't want to go all negative, but I'm going to tell you a little pet peeve of mine when I work with coaches. When coaches will say, I'm horrible with names. And then it's like, okay, well, I guess you're not going to ever learn anybody's name then. It's like, no. If you're horrible with names, you've now established that's a weakness, a coaching weakness, and it's something that you should work on, and there's strategies for that. But if that's something where you're just like, I'm just not good with names, don't give yourself that out. Like, if you're choosing to be in front of the room and coach this class, and you really care about making a good experience for your members, then figure out how to not be bad with names. There's a lot of strategies out there, you know, I don't know. I know a lot of people now can look at the sign up before class. And so, you know, you can go into there and just look and make sure that you have a name matched with each person. And if there's a name that you don't recognize, then make sure that you know, something for me that helps is writing the name on the whiteboard. So just the act of writing it and then saying it, and that kind of repetitive thing just helps me connect it and remember it. But worst case scenario, I'll just go ask someone, even if I know that maybe I should know their name. If I haven't seen them in a while, or I don't coach them that often, it's just like, hey, tell me your name again. Remind me your name. And, you know, just kind of swallow that up a little bit, and then don't forget their name again.
Yeah, there's so many good nuggets there. Write it on the whiteboard. Or if you know that this is the class time that they normally come to and you don't normally coach it, look at if you guys have the luxury of having the whiteboard that shows multiple days, like, I'll be like, I know I kind of know who this person is, but I can't remember for whatever reason. It's slipping me. So I'll look at the whiteboard and be like, look at the noon class from the day before and be like, oh, there it is.
Mm-hmm.
Or I'll go up to somebody that was talking to them and be like, hey, who was that again? Remind me their name. Like there's so many different ways to do that. And to your point, if you just say you're bad with names and then that's it. Like, nah, I'm bad with names. Not good at whatever. I'm not good at muscle ups. I guess I'm never going to work on muscle ups. Yeah, Omar, you're absolutely right. It's okay just to go up and ask them. Just do it.
Yep.
Nobody,
For sure. Yeah.
Way better than not saying their name at all. Anyways, what do you got? What's your next one on the list there?
All right. My next one is make corrections. Don't worry if it's the right cue, just say something. So people typically want to get coached, and I see a lot of coaches that just crush the teaching aspect. They do such a good job, and I can see them seeing things and they just don't say anything. And so the whole class, there's no corrections being made. A lot of times just because they're not sure the right thing to say at that moment. And so they end up not saying anything. But the process to get comfortable saying something that works immediately is that you just have to start saying cues. Like you can't wait for the perfect cue every single time. And so that essentially is mine, is like, hey, just start. If you're not doing it already, just start trying to cue and make corrections as much as you can.
Yeah, I think that's the big thing is so many people are like, well, I don't want to say something that's wrong. I don't want to, like, they're unsure, right? And I'll tell people at like level 2s, because you can see this in their eyes when they're watching people and they're coaching, and I'm like, trust your spider sense, your spidey sense.
Yeah.
It's in your stomach. Like you can feel that something's not right, even if you don't know exactly what that is. Give it a try. And there's a couple things to think about that. Number one, if you are incorrect and I go, hey, Kristin, widen your feet a little bit, and then you do another rep and it looks worse, don't be afraid to be like, never mind.
Yep.
Bring them right back in. Pretend I didn't say that. That wasn't it. And that's, no harm, no foul, as long as you call a spade a spade. And the other thing is, like, you've got to be willing to tinker to figure out how to do this stuff. It should be almost like it's like this ongoing problem that you're trying to solve. I wonder what happens when I say this. I wonder what happens when I tell them to do this. Ooh, that made it better. That might be on the right track. Like, if you're not willing to tinker and you don't think of it as kind of like a game to try to get people to move well, you're never going to get there. You're never going to figure out the cues, because you can steal other people's cues and corrections, which all of us coaches have done. But if you don't have the context, if you don't actually evaluate whether that cue works and whether it impacts the thing, it's not going to get better.
Yeah.
Right? You're not actually going to be able to connect the dots. I don't know if I'm explaining that very well, but I'm trying to think of one. Like, what's the go-to cue for a lack of hip extension that you've seen it and heard every single coach say? And if you're at a level 2 or something and you watch one of the seminar staff members, a lot of times, what is it that they say?
Squeeze your butt.
Cool. Squeeze your butt. Well, if I'm watching an athlete that's doing a push jerk, and what's jumping out to me is that their knees are staying bent when they jump, their torso actually kind of gets back in line with their femur, but their knees are staying bent. Guess what squeezing their butt's probably going to do for them?
Yeah.
What do they need to squeeze in that scenario?
They need to lock their legs out.
Right. And what muscle allows you to do that? What muscle would you squeeze to straighten your knees?
Squeeze my quad.
Yeah. So it's like, hey, it can't just be like, oh, they're lacking hip extension, squeeze your butt. That's how you fix it. You've got to try that and be like, well, that didn't work.
That's what I was going to say. It doesn't mean that saying squeeze your butt is wrong if that's what you have. But then like you said, you've got to put the pieces together to be like, okay, I'm going to say squeeze your butt because I'm not really sure what else to say. Yeah, then say it. Cool. That's where it starts. But then if it doesn't work, and then you kind of do that upstream, downstream, and it's like, oh, okay, I'm going to try this now. Hey, now on this next one, I want you to think about squeezing your quads. Boom. Now you can put that in your pocket and learn
potentially
and
it works,
go from
right?
there. Yeah.
Yeah.
But you've got to just try. And so, don't be afraid to say something, show something. Because that's another thing. I see a lot of coaches just like struggling to find the right word. Don't forget about the power of visual cue. You just show them what they're doing wrong, point to the body part and be like, hey, this is what you look like. Look at my hip. And I want it to look like this. And then if you're struggling with the words, just show them and see if that works.
Yeah, seeing common faults, knowing how to recall them. It's like you've got to be committed when you're coaching to trying to see things and trying to fix things. If you're not committed to that, there it is. This is all on pages 5 through 11.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is exactly it. It goes through the 9 foundational movements. It tells you what the common faults are. It gives you some ideas on cues and corrections to fix it. But you can't just take those pages word for it. That's a great place to start, but you got to see how it actually applies in real life and in real time. Yeah. So,
all right,
who's up? I'm up.
You're up. Yeah, you're up.
All right. So, I think since you're talking about giving cues and corrections, I'm going to stay in line with the correcting side of things.
Okay.
And coaches, you have to check and recheck and then recheck the recheck of your athlete's stance and grip.
Yes, I have that one too.
I can't tell you how many times I've seen or heard a coach be like, all right, guys, I want your feet underneath your shoulders. We're going to squat. And it's like, they said the right thing, but guess how many athletes don't do that correctly. Either they're not paying attention or they don't really know where their shoulders are at. And it's like, if I just assume because I said the right thing that my athletes are going to do the right thing, I am going to be incorrect as a coach. So you've got to check stance and grip. Foot position. And we've discussed this many, many times, I think, that if you can get the setup position correct and the receiving position correct, what's going to go wrong in the middle is pretty marginal.
And these are static positions, right? Like you can hold your athletes there. That's why, again, going back to keeping your athletes moving together, if you're calling reps on your go in that specific warm-up, then you can hold them in these positions and you can give yourself time to look around and make sure that everyone's where you want them. I have mine on my list is hammer the setup positions and don't forget to revisit them. Right. So that's another thing, it's like, I'm going to hammer the setup position on this push press, right? Hey, Todd, bring your hands a little bit wider. Omar, lift your elbows up. Angelo, squeeze your belly, all these things, right? Okay, do a rep, ready, go. And then all of the work I've just done on that setup position inevitably goes away. Elbows drop, right? Maybe the not squeezing the belly anymore. So you have to continue to go back and look and make sure they're still in that same position that you hammered the first time around. So it just sets us up for success.
Yeah, not only that, on multiple reps, like you're referring to there, like especially a push press, somebody's going to go back to the wrong rack position or something like that. But I always remind coaches, like anytime I stop and give my athletes a break, I stop them as a coach to make the next teaching point. And now they've rested and they've moved out of that setup position. I've got to assume that they're going to go back to the incorrect setup position when call them back again. So it's like if I'm teaching just even a simple air squat and it's like, all right, first point of performance that we're going to work on is keeping our back flat. I get their stance set up. I teach that first point of performance. I call some reps. Then I'm like, all right, guys, take a rest. Next thing we're going to work on are hips going back and knees going out, whatever that is. All right, back to your squat stance. And now I'm re-looking at everybody's feet and I'm defaulting towards the people that I had to correct the first time around, because those are the people that are more than likely going to go back to what they're used to and what their habits are. And I'm going to double check. Oh, Kristin typically likes to squat with a narrow stance. So I'm going to re-look at her feet. Hey, remember, Kristin, I want your feet a little bit wider, and just keep hammering that thing and keep checking it. Angelo makes the point of like asking members later on how a cue worked. I think there's some value in that in seeing if it helped connect the dots. And I would like, here's the way I look at that or think about that of like, hey, we can go back to the cue that we gave around squeeze your quads, where it's like, cool, as a coach, maybe I'm watching somebody do a push jerk. I notice that they're missing hip extension. I try squeeze your butt. That doesn't work visually. I can see that doesn't get them to hip extension. I try squeeze your quads. It now works. I reinforce that. Then later on, I'm like, hey, Kristin, could you feel the difference when you're squeezing your quads? And then if you're like, yes or no, or whatever that is, hopefully there's a yes. And now I can be like, hey, reinforce this. I want you to feel that. I want you to think about that in every one of your reps or whatever that is, to hopefully reinforce that. If I just simply ask, if I give you a cue, hey, Kristin, squeeze your butt. And then I go, did that work? And I didn't watch to see if it works. She's probably not going to know, right?
Yeah. And in that same vein, we want to be careful with asking our athletes, how does that feel?
Oh, I could have had this on my list. That one, you guys see that get posted a lot.
Yeah. Like, you make a change. Okay. How does that feel? Well, it's always going to feel awkward, uncomfortable, and weird if you've put them in a position that they're not used to being in. Right. And so I get it. Like, we want to make sure they're not in pain or anything like that. Or maybe there's an element of like, do you feel the change that I've made?
Yes.
Do you feel that now your belly is nice and engaged or what have you? But if we're giving a cue, and I think that sometimes I'll see this again when coaches just lack a little bit of confidence, or, oh, am I putting them in the right position? Was that the right cue? And so I turn to my athlete to get them to tell me, right? Like, okay, well, how does that feel? And they're giving me either the thumbs up or the thumbs down. But really, the movement should dictate, like, what do they look like? Is their body position better? Are they hitting a point of performance that they weren't hitting otherwise? And that should tell you whether or not the cue was good or they're in a good position. And if they're like, this is really uncomfortable, it's like, well, yeah, I'm putting you in a position that you haven't been going in. So of course it's going to be a little uncomfortable.
Yeah. I don't think anybody comes to a CrossFit class to be comfortable. If that's what we're doing, you're doing it wrong, right? The goal is to be uncomfortable, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think all of that makes a ton of sense.
All right.
All right. What do you got? What's your next one?
Let's see. So if I'm scrolling down the list, I jumped out of order a little bit because some of mine were the same as yours. Let's do this one. Know the points of performance for all the movements that you were teaching.
Ooh. But how
points of performance.
How do you know them? How do you do that? How do you know them?
I mean, you're going to have to. So for starters, I would recommend, and I'm sure that you agree with me, this is definitely one of the things we hammer to people in the Knowledge Pro. We have a whole lesson on this for Affiliate U, is just memorizing the points of performance on the 9 foundational movements. Yeah. And I've noticed every once in a while, people push back a little bit. This is elementary. This is too basic. This is dumb. Why are we having to do this? Memorize, whatever. And it's like, man, if you can memorize those points of performance and know them like the back of your hand, then it just opens up your bandwidth to so many more things so much quicker, because you don't have to think what you're looking for in a deadlift. You don't have to think about what you need to see in a squat. You just know it. And then that can take you so much quicker to the step of, okay, now I'm going to spend my bandwidth on figuring out what the right cue is to fix what I see is not going wrong. So starters, memorize the 9 foundational movements.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned it. That's been lesson 1 in the Knowledge Pro in each one of our semesters so far, is memorizing the points of performance and the stance and grip, the setup positions for each of the 9 foundational movements. It's currently going to be lesson 10 in coach development for Affiliate University, but you have to know that stuff like the back of your hand. Since I opened my gym, that was step 1. You want to be a coach at my gym? Cool. First thing you need to do is memorize these. Tell me when you know them. I'm going to give you an informal test. If you can't spit them out, like forward and backwards, inside and out, you're just not ready.
Yeah.
You're just not ready. Because here's the deal. If I don't know all of the points of performance, I'm not going to teach all the points of performance. If I don't teach all the points of performance, I'm not going to look for the points of performance. If I don't look for the points of performance, I'm not going to see them. If I don't see them, I can't correct them.
Yeah.
Like, it's just such a big trickle down effect. And there's so many times, even, at level 2s, we see coaches coaching and they teach 3 out of the 5 points of performance and they hammer them. They teach them really, really well. Those athletes are doing those 3 things great, but there's 2 things that they're doing wrong. And those are the 2 points of performance that we never covered.
For sure.
Right. Or we didn't teach.
Yeah. Because you're not going to, exactly like you said, you're not going to see something if you're not looking for it.
Yeah.
And if you have them memorized and you know them, then you're that much further ahead. And here's the deal. The reason that we push those foundational movements, and this is, we talk about this at the very beginning of the course at the level 1, is that these movements, they're building blocks for all these other movements that we're going to do. So if you know the front squat points of performance and the push press, then when it gets to a thruster, you're going to know what you're looking for. When you leave the barbell and go get your medicine ball, and now we're doing wall balls, you're going to know what you're looking for. So they transfer to so many things that we do. And that goes to with the gymnastics movements, with the rower, with the double unders, like any movement that you're teaching for that day, we want you to know, we're seeing pages 5 to 11. We want you to know what it is you're teaching, what it is you're going to be looking for your athletes to do.
Yeah. If you guys aren't diving into the level 1 and the level 2 trainer guides, the CrossFit trainer guides, you are just missing out. And if you are not memorizing all of that content on pages 5 through 11, not only the points of performance, not only the setup and finish positions, but also the progression steps, and then getting an idea of common flaws and faults, you're missing the boat. You're just, that's some low hanging fruit that you're
leaving some of a big amount of your coaching capacity just on the table. Like, it is such an easy way for you to just immediately become a better coach.
I love this right here. Omar makes mention, he's like, idea, imagine walking into a gym for an interview as a coach, and the second interview question was, what are the points of performance for the air squat? First being, what's the definition of CrossFit?
Savage.
Like, if
Love
you
it.
can't, and we laugh at that, but it's like, how many people do you think wouldn't get that right?
So
like,
many.
Yeah.
So many good coaches.
Right. And they could just be better coaches by knowing the basics. And I think that point that you made of knowing the points of performance kind of goes hand in hand with my next point, which is to teach all the movements that you're covering in class. And here's what I mean by that. You can't assume that people know anything. It can't be like, well, it's an air squat and everybody in class has been with me for 5 years. So guys, just give me 10 air squats. Yes, will they do some form of a squat? Probably so. Do you think there will be some flaws and faults in there? Absolutely. Will there be things that you could see and correct if you're actually looking for them and working on them? Yes, there absolutely is. So it doesn't, like, you don't need to spend 12 minutes on every single movement that you're teaching, but you need to cover the basics of everything that you're doing. Movement standards, hit the points of performance, make sure that everybody in class is doing those, and don't assume that just because it's running or it's a squat or it's just a push-up. Everybody can do a push-up. It's like the movements that seem more or most basic are the ones that I'll go in and see, a class, and I'm like, there's not a single person in here doing a real push-up.
Yeah.
And not everybody's going all the way down, or not everybody's going all the way up, or some people's hips are sagging, or whatever this thing is. Take the opportunity.
But what's crazy is you just take, like you said, take the opportunity to spend 5 minutes going over, again, the points of performance for a push-up and teaching them. All of a sudden, all these people that are not doing it correctly are doing it correctly. Like, it's not like they don't have the ability to, it's just they haven't been coached to do it right. So, and this is great. One of the things that I have written down here, which falls in line with this, is have a plan to teach all of the movements. So, and then I put either using like layering things in or using progressions. Kind of falls under the lesson plan, because in my lesson plan, I'm going to know kind of, all right, well, my timeline is one thing with the lesson plan, but also how I'm going to teach each section. So yeah, whether it's like you said, a push up, a row, a jump rope, running, just have some sort of a plan on how you're going to get those performance points taught to your people.
So here's a question for you.
Okay.
Let's say the workout is filthy 50. We got 10 exercises, 50 reps each. It's a workout that is probably going to take, you should probably allot at least 30 minutes, I would guess, in your lesson plan.
For the
workout? Your
workout?
athletes
Yeah.
for the workout, right?
Yeah.
So 30 minutes, cool. Say you want an 8-minute cool down. That's 38 minutes. You've got a 3-minute whiteboard brief. That's 41 minutes. I've now got 19 minutes. Well, we've got a 2-minute bathroom break, which
So
is now
we're
17 minutes. And then you're probably
equipment
actually
set up.
Yeah, equipment. Well, hopefully you've got equipment staged.
Coming up stage for sure.
But at a minimum, people are going to need whiteboards or some way to track what the workout is. So let's call it like that's an extra 2 minutes. So let's say you've got 15 minutes. 15 minutes of general warm-up and specific warm-up time for 10 movements. How do we do that? How do you teach everything?
Oh, are you really asking me?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. I prioritize the more complex movements are going to have a couple more minutes. Some of the more simple ones, like a burpee, that's going to be, hey, you're going to fall down on the ground, you're going to jump up. I'm not going to spend as much time with that. And usually what I'll do is walk everybody through the order of it and just get a couple reps in with each one. And then that way they've got their equipment where it needs to be. We've kind of gotten the flow. And then, yeah.
And when does this happen? Is this specific warm-up after a general warm-up? Or
no, the whole thing, it's a clump. It's one big clump.
General and specific.
Yeah.
And Omar puts it here too. And that's the same way. It's like, all right, cool. This thing starts with box jumps. So it might be like step up to the box. We're going to do 2 step ups and then you're going to do 3 box jumps. Cool. We got it. Now come over here to the pull-up bar. We're going to do our jumping pull-ups. Sweet. And you're walking them through the flow, the sequence. You're hitting the points of performance. There's probably going to be a little bit more time spent on like the push press. That you're going to be doing, right? Maybe a wall ball shot double under if you need to do that. But you still touch on everything. It's not just, hey, I'm going to just teach the push press. You guys see the list of the 10 movements here. You know those 3, 2, 1,
100%,
go. You've got to walk through this thing and
even if it means, like you said, we've done 2 box jumps, 1 burpee, whatever. We've still done it.
Yeah. People know where they're going, and you've given your athletes an opportunity to practice the movement, get a refresher for people that aren't as geeked out about this stuff. And like, as soon as they walk out of the gym, their brain goes wiped clear and they don't remember the names of movements and stuff like that. It's like, you've got to give them the reminder there. And you've also given yourself a chance to see people move and either make corrections, or based on how they're moving, that should be how we're going to scale them, And in fact, that leads me to my next point. And this is one that I think is critical. And this is one that I don't think we as coaches do enough. And that is that it is our job to scale for each and every one of our athletes. And what I mean by that is not just like, hey guys, if you can't do pull-ups, you're doing ring rows. Sweet. No, it's my job to go up and be like, all right, Kristin, based on what I saw, I know the workout has sets of 20 pull-ups. I'm thinking we're going to do 12. Do you think you can do 3 sets of 4 to get there? Cool. All right. You're good. That's what you're doing today. And then I go over to somebody else like Christian. All right, Christian, I know this is brand new. We're going to stick with ring rows, but instead of 20, I'm going to have you just do 10. You good with that? Cool. Thumbs up. We move on from there. It just can't be like, guys, here's the workout. Here are the scaling options.
Choose your own adventure.
Do your best.
Yeah.
It just does not
or
work
even
out.
Asking the athlete, right? Well, Todd, what do you want to do? What are you thinking? It's like, they don't know.
There is a time and a place for that. Like, I do think that check-in, if you've got like a somewhat experienced athlete,
that's the key though. That can't be the blanket way that you that guides your scaling. It has to be, like you said, like it has to be athlete dependent.
Right. And me walking up and going, Kristin, what are you thinking today? I should have something in my mind that I'm thinking, and I want to see where they're at. If she goes, hey, I think I can do it RX, and in my mind, I know that's not the case, I'm going to be like, ooh, you think you can do 20 pull-ups in 3 sets or less per round for 5 rounds? And she goes, ooh, I've got to do it in 3 sets. And you're like, yeah, oh, maybe not, right? Or maybe she's like, I feel really, really good. And then it's my choice as the coach to be like, all right, we're going to negotiate here. Here's going to be the agreement. I need, the first 4 rounds of the 5-round workout, it needs to be done in 3 sets or less.
Yes.
If it's not, we're going to drop the number down. If it is, we're good to go. Whatever that is, but it needs to be our agreement and ultimately my decision on what you're going to do.
Here's I just want to like highlight one of the things that you said, because I think this is such a good assist for coaches that struggle how to scale people, or when athletes push back on it, is give them those qualifiers, right? Like, you're going to be able, okay, you think you can do 3 sets of 4 in 30 seconds or whatever you just said, right? Like, if you give them set amounts or time frames, then that helps make it a little bit more objective. And people tend to work with us, I think, a little bit more when it's like, oh, you need me to do this first set unbroken? Well, I don't know if I can do all 15 reps unbroken. It's like, all right, well, I need you to pick a weight that you can do those 15 reps unbroken, or what have you, right? But just simply saying, you think that weight's going to be good? You good with that? Yeah. Okay. If you give them that number, you give them that time frame, that can just help kind of assist our back and forth with the athlete a little bit more.
Yeah, it definitely is something that we need to be the ones doing. Go around, have a game plan, know what the scaling options are, and you be the one that decides that stuff.
Are we calling up the push-ups here?
The push-ups, yeah. No, like, that is one of the movements. You go into a gym, there are very few that are
I know, I have a push-up pet peeve for sure.
Oh,
yeah. Because if you're locking out your elbows, then but your hips aren't rising, you're just like letting the chest go up and down.
You just hinge at the low back. And I'm like, what is going on?
That's right. Like, yeah, so many. There's certain workouts that, like, you just kind of take with a grain of salt when you see other people's scores. It's like, oh yeah, got 30 rounds on Cindy, huh? Like, I don't think so. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, Angelo, it's got to be, we need one-on-one interactions, even in a group setting.
It's hard.
And it doesn't need to be a 5-minute conversation with every athlete, because if you do that, clearly you're not going to have enough time. So there's a few things. Number one, from the moment that person walks in the door, you should have a game plan for what they're going to be doing. You should be checking in. Could be like literally the 2 minutes before class starts and Kristin comes in. Hey, Kristin, how was your weekend? Cool. Hey, workout today has 20 pull-ups. I'm thinking 12 around for you. What do you think? Oh yeah, that sounds good. Cool. You know what you're doing. And now I've already kind of checked that box. So the workout can start and the class can start and I can work with other folks. There also might be people like, Kristin, in case you guys didn't know, Kristin's a former regional athlete. I don't know why I'm laughing when I'm saying that, but if she's in my class.
Because currently now you're like, it seems really crazy, guys. I know. It seems really, really crazy, but stick with me.
Stick with me here.
There are actual photographic evidence of her at regionals.
Yeah.
If she's in my, before it was really hard.
If she's in my class, I know that she can probably do this RX, but I'm still going to at least make eye contact, say her name, and be like, Kristin, you feel good? Give her a thumbs up. I want that back, right? Just to know I've checked in. I don't necessarily need to walk over and ask her exactly what her game plan is. I'm just going to check in and be like, hey, are we good? She can tell me yes. She, like, if it's, she's not going to do it RX, she might be like, yeah, I'm thinking 12 pull-ups. And I'm like, cool. Are you a little beat up? She says, yep. I'm like, awesome. I know it. Like, I've checked in with everybody, no matter if you're the best athlete, you're the newest athlete, doesn't matter. We're still having that check-in.
Yeah, for sure. And that, again, the value of those specific warm-ups, because a lot of the stuff happens there. You're just kind of getting eyes on people, and it's helping you to make those last-minute calls.
Yeah, I think like Omar makes a good point of like figuring out how to help people modulate and modify their rest. And some people rest longer than they need
Oh,
to.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so helping to give them the encouragement to get back to the bar and pick that up there. Another big piece of that also is like, especially if we've scaled appropriately, athletes should have the capacity that they have should allow for the appropriate amount of rest time, right? If we've let them go too heavy and I walk over and I see them resting too long and I'm like, hey, Kristin, let's go pick up the bar. I've seen people count down 3, 2, 1 and the athlete can't. I probably let them go a little bit too heavy or do something that was probably inappropriate. So being very aware of that, Omar, to your point, I think is huge. It's
Yeah.
like, hey, the rest, the work, all of that stuff should be correlated as well.
Yeah, and there's value there. There's that also corresponds, I think, with the value of making those connections with people when they walk in the door. How you feeling today? If they're feeling a little beat up, whatever. Because there may be times where someone's coming in just to, just move a little bit. Maybe they're not trying to hit the 90% intensity that day, but I'm ideally knowing that before the workout starts so that we can, so the two different scenarios, right? Like, so it's not the scenario where necessarily they went a little too heavy and they're not able to pick the bar up yet, but maybe it's just a scenario where it's like, I'm not going to get in their face and yell at them to go faster or harder. If it's just like, hey, I'm cruising today. My foot's not on the gas pedal that hard. But if you do have the athletes, let me ask you this, Todd, and you see, all right, 3, 2, 1, pick up the bar. Let's go. You're resting too long, whatever. And you realize that you failed on the scale, right? Like they're a little too heavy. What do you do?
Oh, we make adjustments. I'll
So
either be like, hey, let me
mid-workout.
I'm either taking the weight down or I'm like, hey, I know it was set to 10. I go, how many have you done? And they're like, I did 6. I'm like, oh, that's good. Cool. You're done. Move on to the next movement or whatever. And let's do 6 next time if we're going to stay with the weight. But yeah, there's definitely some sort of modification or change to make it appropriate. I don't just.
Most of the time, in my experience, when that happens, the athlete usually thanks me. Like, yeah, sounds good.
100%. When you walk up to them and you're like, hey, you want me to take some off? Or you don't even ask them. You're like, hey, I'm going to take these 10s off.
10s off.
They look at you and like shake their head. They're
thank you. Good idea.
Thank you.
Now, what do you do with the athlete who's like, no, I can do it. No, I'm going to do all 15 reps. No, I want to keep the weight on.
So much of that depends on what the scenario is with, like, is this round 2 of a 5-round workout? If that's the case, like there's just no chance.
You're pulling your coach's card.
Yeah, that one's a no-go.
Yeah.
If it's, the 5th round of a 5-round workout, I'll probably let them chip away and get through that thing. If, it is the 2nd round, but time-wise, they're still going to be close. Or like, I potentially will be like, cool, you want to keep the weight, your 400-meter runs are going to be 100 meters, right? There's got to be some sort of give and take.
Right?
Like, it's like, hey, as long as they still look good and their technique allows them to move safe enough to do that, then I'm all right with that.
Yeah, and this is the thing, Brad, PR or ER, and it's a little tongue in cheek, right? But it's true. Like, it is our responsibility to make sure. And it's a trickle down. Like, this is why we talk about scaling properly so that we're not put in that position that we have to make that call mid-workout. But it happens, right? Like, we're not going to do 100% the best scales perfectly every single time, especially when we have sometimes, it happens to the best of us, right? We're like, hey, you guys should be able to do this first round unbroken, or you should be able to, whatever the qualifiers are. You're watching everybody looks good to go. You're checking in with people. Okay, good. I feel good. And then mid-workout that happens. I just think we have to be ready to push back and to kind of put our foot down when we do get the athlete that's like, no, I am going to still do this, even though my back is rounding, looks like my vertebrae are going to pop out of my spine like a Pez dispenser. It's like, no.
I always say this too, because new coaches will ask that question. It's like, yeah, but what I don't want to stop somebody in the middle of their workout, or I don't want to change their weight if it's going to be a PR. And I'm like, hey, here's the deal. your reputation as a coach and your affiliate's reputation as being a safe environment is on the line.
Yeah.
Because from my experience, I've never seen an athlete that's being a knucklehead doing weight that or a movement or something that they should not have been doing. Like, I've never seen an athlete that does that, ends up hurting themselves because they chose to make the wrong choice. Tell somebody else that, like, oh, I got hurt because I was being dumb. I shouldn't have done this.
I made the bad call.
Yeah, it always turns into like, no, I got hurt doing CrossFit at Todd's gym.
At Todd's gym, yep.
Because Todd's a bad coach and he runs a bad gym. And I'm like, no, my reputation is staked on the fact that that's not the case. I am not going to allow you to do that. If you are so bound and determined to do your own thing, you need to do your own thing at some other place rather than my gym, because I can't afford for myself or my affiliate to be known as a gym that that hurts people. Even if it wasn't my fault, even if it was their choice, they're never going to say it that way, or very rarely will they say it that way. So that's one of those things that you've got to be aware of as a coach.
Yeah, it can be hard and uncomfortable, but it's so important.
What's funny is you bringing that up reminds me of like when I first got into CrossFit and started coaching and then opened my affiliate. I remember there was a coaches meeting. I told my coaches, I'm like, hey, we need to try to scale people appropriately. But if we don't and we mess up, it's on us. And once the athlete starts the workout and they've already decided that that's the workout that they're doing, we need to just let them do it. Can you believe that?
That's great. Yeah.
That was where I was like, because I thought of myself as an athlete, whereas like when I had started CrossFit,
like how mad you would get if someone,
well, I'm like, I decided to do this. And it was almost like my own punishment of like, well, I thought I could, so I guess I'm going to have to push through and do it. And so I thought everybody else had the same mindset that I did. So I'm telling coaches, I'm like, hey, we want to scale them right. But if you don't, know that they're going to be committed to wanting to do the workout that way. So, even if it's going to take you over your timeline, just kind of let it ride.
This will teach them.
It's not even to teach them. I was like, I'm being nice to them, right?
Oh my God.
We don't want to offend. We don't want to offend
people.
Yeah,
don't do that. Don't do that.
Quickly seeing people just, to your point, when somebody is struggling and you go up as a coach and you're like, hey, was that too heavy? And they give you the look like, please save me.
Give me permit. I don't want to fail by choosing to pull weight off. But if you, the coach, tells me I have to, well, that's a whole different game.
Yeah.
Oh, well, we've only got a couple minutes left. So I think I only have one more.
I've got one left. You've got one left.
And this is my number one.
Same here. What is it?
Have fun.
Oh, 100%. Same deal.
All the technical stuff we've been talking about and diving into for the whole entire time. So important, right? And we could talk about it, for hours and hours. But man, ultimately, if the class isn't fun,
if it's not enjoyable, you're not going to get the buy-in from people to do the rest of the stuff. You're not going to be able to do it well, right?
Yeah.
And so it has to be an experience that people enjoy and that people want to come back for. Plain and simple. And you also, like, if it's not fun for them, it's probably not fun for you. And that's like, who wants a job like this that isn't fun for you as a coach and then isn't fun for your athletes? And
presence and attitude. Yep.
Dude, that's it. It's like, it's got to be a good time. And I think, when I think about somebody that executes at a really high level and is very, very technical, but really makes it fun. If you've ever taken a class from DT or you've seen her coach,
there's a reason she is who she is.
Right?
Yeah. In the community. For sure.
Yeah. It's like, man, she is so technical. She is demanding so much. She does everything so by the book as it relates to class, but golly, she makes it fun. Maybe it's the accent. That must be it. That's probably the only thing. That's probably the only thing.
If you gave her my voice, it would be like anybody else. Let's be honest. Right. Shout out DT.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's got to be fun. It's got to be fun. You've got to do that. So
like figure out what that looks like for you, right? Like it's going to look a little different. It's all about bringing the biggest version of yourself, right? So look a little different for everybody.
And same thing, if you're having a good time, there's a good chance that the people in class are having a good time. And so think about that. That being said, if it's only fun and you don't do anything else, you don't teach anybody anything, you don't see and correct, there's no management, you don't start on time, you don't finish on time, fun's only going to get you so far. It might buy you like, a couple months of coaching or of running classes, but sooner or later people are going to be like, man, Todd's classes were great, but I just can't afford to go 20 minutes over every single time. And, it feels dangerous because I've never been coached on how to do this stuff right. I'm just not going to keep coming back. So it can't be at all costs, but it should be fun, and we should still get all the rest of that stuff in there too. So
for sure.
Anyways, if you guys are looking for a way to dive into what makes a good CrossFit class and what makes a great coach, lesson 1 for Affiliate University starts this next week on Monday, and that is going to be the lesson. And so that's a great place to start. We've also got a new semester of the Knowledge Pro lessons kicking off. So if you are just a coach and your affiliate's not going to be a part of Affiliate University, jump into the Knowledge Daily or the Knowledge Pro. That thing is going to be it. Omar's saying it right here. Join the Knowledge Pro. It is the place to be. And we'll be diving into all of this stuff, making you guys great coaches in 2025. So looking forward to doing so. We will be back next week, same exact time. If you guys have anything that you want us to talk about specifically, drop some questions. Drop some questions for us.
Topics.
Let us know, and we will make sure that we hit them up next time. So, Cabo, as always, a pleasure.
Yeah, this was fun. I liked your list.
Yeah,
and
same.
Hope you and everybody had a lovely new year and excited for 2025.
Yeah, let's do it. See you next time.
All right, bye.